Welcome in, everybody, to the Take the North podcast. I am Dan Wiederer, pleased to be joined today by a very familiar and very special guest on the Take the North podcast. It's our old buddy, Rich Campbell, joining us at a time in the season where this is unfamiliar in Chicago. The Bears are 9-3. The Bears are the top seed in the NFC. The Bears are rolling. Rich, how you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Speaking of unfamiliar, what does that say after your name on this?
Yeah, it's probably been a while since we talked. It says the Athletic. I moved from the Chicago Tribune to the Athletic this season. Obviously, we've spoken about that a time or two offline. But here we are. It's a new season, a new era, a new dawn. We usually have you on once or twice a year. You can help me reflect on some things of where the Bears have been and where they're going. And it seemed like a good time to bring you aboard. And so I'm sure you ask yourself, why am I here? And here's the answer, Rich. The Bears have 9 wins. The Bears have 9 wins. And the last time that the Bears had 9 wins was 2018. You were sitting in the chair right beside me at Haugh. So we got in the cold tub time machine today, and we brought you aboard here so we can kind of reflect on the present and the past and figure out if we can make sense of all of this.
Yeah. Why am I here? It's like I can only talk about the Bears. I only know them when they stink. It's unfamiliar territory, except for the 1 year you mentioned, 2018, and what a year that was. It's been neat to see the transformation of the team and at arm's length, and a lot to break down there. But you in particular have endured some long seasons at Haugh, some long Decembers, and it's just struck me as the game ended on Black Friday, the difference a year makes. And I'm sure it did everybody there. Like Black Friday a year ago, the Bears fired a coach in season for the first time in franchise history. And just a complete turnaround in 365 days, which is kind of what the league is all about. It makes it interesting, and it makes it even more painstaking, I think, for Bears fans that it has taken so long to achieve that turnaround that seems to happen somewhere every year. But here they are, setting up for a fun December.
For those unfamiliar with you, Rich, you were on the Chicago Bears beat for the Chicago Tribune 2013 to 2019. Like I say, right alongside of me. So we'll give people a little bit of background on some of your perspective and where you're coming from. You mentioned the Black Friday game. I said last week that I wish I had an opportunity to write my 2024 Thanksgiving weekend self a letter to say, just hang in there. Just hang in there. It's going to get better, because that was a really tumultuous time. Professionally, as you're covering a team, it's really difficult to go through those. Kevin Fishman and I had a little, powwow this week here at Haugh, talking about how much of a gift this is to arrive at December, not searching for stories that are going to resonate with the audience. There's a menu 20 stories deep right now of things that we could tell that will excite the masses. It's a great place to be. But I'll keep you where you just said, Black Friday of this year. Being a football-minded guy like you are, what struck you about the way that the Bears not only won in Philadelphia, but also went and won very convincingly in a way that really seems like it's caught the Nationals people's attention?
Yeah, and I'll go back a day. So let's start on Thanksgiving. So I was in Las Vegas for Thanksgiving this year, visiting family.
Typical.
Yeah. We stayed on the Strip, and when you're in the Eastern time, and you got kids on Eastern time, those mornings can be rough. Like Vegas is slow to get going anyway. And here we're up early, and we're flipping around on the hotel TV, and they've got one of those, Pluto TV subscription plans. And on the TV, we find the Chicago Thanksgiving Parade. I didn't even know they had one. Lived there for 7 winters and didn't even know they had a Chicago Thanksgiving Parade. So I'm watching it, and the reporter is doing the shtick of asking people what they're thankful for, and there's a woman on there with just an awesome Chicago accent talking about the diversity in our community and all. And I'm just like, oh man,
was it my mother-in-law?
No, it wasn't. Shout out to Mimi. There's 3 women in this group of 4 that the reporter was interviewing, and they get to the man at the end of the 4, and there's like, "Sir, what are you thankful for?" And he just looks in the camera and goes, "Go Bears." and I just thought, like, this is so, number one, just perfect Chicago. But number 2, they're having fun again. And it's the word that keeps coming back to me all throughout this slow, steady ascent. Maybe not the most emphatic ascent here, as the Bears have navigated a soft schedule, relatively speaking. But they go into Philly and really push around the Eagles at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. That really is what gives you the feel of this win. Because, I mean, you're just looking at the game flow chart here. Caleb Williams throws an interception on a screen pass with 6 minutes to go in the third quarter, and the Eagles take over down 1 at the plus 36-yard line.
Right.
And at that point, the analytics show that Philly had a 75% chance of winning that game at that point. And it's like, okay, did the Bears really, win as emphatically as it feels now? Well, you look at that line of scrimmage, the performance at the line of scrimmage. To me, that's what sets it apart. And now you stamp this in a way that when you're looking at the top of the NFC and to 2 games against the Packers coming up in essentially 3 weeks, it becomes really fun. And as I've gotten older and grumpier and maybe even away from the league, not as close as I was to it when I was working, but like, you remember, it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun. And like, anybody who's listening to a Bears podcast, if you're listening to Take the North, you're a diehard fan. Okay. It's a badge of honor that you have suffered through the Mark Trestman years, the John Fox years, the Mitch Trubisky experience. Those are badges of honor, and everybody wears those. But really, the fun is better. It's better when you're having fun. It's supposed to be fun. And finally, they're having fun. I mean, the whole thing with Ben Johnson ripping his shirt off.
Yeah.
And that whole bit this week, it's we could talk in a minute about the quote unquote honeymoon phase, but it's fun. And that is what's cool. So that's what I appreciated about the win, is that, like, okay, the season is validated and now it's fun. So let's see where it goes.
I've got 2 things to tell you about, and we'll just kind of discuss them a little bit. Number one, we've got some data from our people above us on this podcast that Friday's post-game podcast episode of Take the North was the second highest downloaded in the history of the podcast.
Third after this one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. The first highest, they said, was probably due to some technological glitch that may have given us inflated numbers. And so this, for me, I've brought this up on several different forums. Like this argument that's out there is like, the media loves it. The media loves negativity. That's what sells. No, these stories sell, and these stories sell in a fun way. These seasons sell in a fun way. I remember Steve McMichael, God rest his soul, talking about how he became a lot more popular in his retired days in seasons that the Bears were good. Right now, all of a sudden, people want him in at signings more often, and he's getting paid more. And so he says, listen, like, we were always rooting for the Bears to be good. They just weren't capable of being that way in a lot of ways. It brings me back to Friday for a second, because number one, I think that for me, I think the signature play of that game and the signature sequence really right now in the season is when they not only stop the tush push, but rip out a fumble at a time where you say the Eagles had a 3/4, 75% chance of winning the football game. And then they turn around on the first snap on offense and they go 31 yards on a running play. And you're like, okay, like, this team is equipped to handle games and circumstances like this because of the way they are, which then brings us to the post-game celebration, the head coach ripping off his shirt. I'm sure from afar you had no idea the backstory, and so the first time you see Ben Johnson shirtless in your social media feed, you got to be going, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, for me, it's what a look at me move this guy's pulling. Who was it? It was there was a coach in the NCAA tournament a year or two ago in college basketball who, like, ripped his shirt off and jumped on the scores table. It wasn't Alabama.
It might have been Alabama, or it was Nate Oates, or
Arkansas. Anyway, and I remember that being like, in a college environment, I remember thinking, like, man, it's got to be about the kids. Like, don't make it about yourself. And then I thought, like, here's Ben Johnson making it about himself. But I know a little bit more about the context of Ben from what you've told me, in terms of the way he's wired. So I understand the intensity. The backstory with the Wiener Circle makes a lot more sense. But again, that's fun. Whether it's cheesy or fleeting, whatever. It's just been a very fun week in the Bears orbit this week. So enjoy it. I mean, gosh, it is such a long time coming, and well-deserved for the fans who have sat through such misery that, enjoy the honeymoon. And I started thinking about this word honeymoon. And then I was trying to remember where you and Bill went on your honeymoon. I'm going to guess Hawaii.
No, we got married in Mexico, so we just stayed in Mexico. It was the easiest thing to do. We kicked everybody out at the end of the wedding, and then we just went to a different resort and spent another week there. So that was my honeymoon.
Okay. So my honeymoon was in Hawaii, and I got married while we were on the beach together. So,
and we're both going to leave the details of those respective trips out of this podcast.
My point is like, Chicago is in the honeymoon period with Ben Johnson right now, and we went through the honeymoon period with Matt Nagy in 2018. And if you think about it in that,
there's parallels for sure.
In that light, you can draw easy parallels, like the club dub under Nagy in 20 and all that stuff. So Ben Johnson is generating that same type of enthusiasm with similar, I don't want to say gimmicks. I mean, that's just his style. It's a leadership style. It's a coaching style. Charisma. And if the results warrant, which they did in 2018 and they do now, there is no need to apologize for enjoying the honeymoon.
Right.
There's just no need. In fact, go nuts. Go nuts. You don't need to, like, the implication of saying that word honeymoon is the honeymoon eventually ends. That's the implication, and it will. I mean, I remember in 2023. I went to Notre Dame, Ohio State in Notre Dame Stadium. And it was Ohio State's first trip to Notre Dame Stadium in like 27 years. Marcus Freeman there was he had finished 2021. He had like 10 wins in 2022, and they started 4-0 in 2023. Ohio State won that game in the final possession because Notre Dame had 10 men on the field at the goal line on the final plays. And I was walking out of the stadium with some just diehard Notre Dame fans, and they were just like, the honeymoon's over with this guy. And it was such a sobering feeling, like that deflation when the honeymoon is over, and that exists in any situation, whether you're a Senor Frogs in Mexico or wherever you and Jillian were living it up, or Lauren and me in Maui or whatever. But you don't need to circle that date on your calendar, and you don't need to be afraid of that.
Right.
Date. You just need to ride it. And we could talk later in the show about the sustainability of all that. But I would just say, just enjoy it, ride it. I mean, it's fun. It's supposed to be fun. It is fun. And congratulations. Just soak it up.
And you've just earned a chance to play a first place game at Lambeau Field in front of a late afternoon audience on Sunday. It doesn't get any better than this as a football fan. It's football theater. It's everything you ask for. Before we get to some of those bigger picture topics, one of the reasons I thought to reach out to you is because I was up in the Philadelphia press box at Lincoln Financial Field on Friday and reflecting on some of our previous trips up there. I had never seen the Bears win there. That was pretty clear. And as I went back through some of the history of our trips up there, I was like, oh man, this is cold time machine stuff here, just to reflect on what some of the low points are. 2013, you remember that one vividly. The Bears have a chance to clinch the division that night in Philadelphia. And not only do they not clinch the division in a Sunday night game, they lose 54-11. Thoughts?
Yeah. So what I remember about that game was the Bears were 8-6. And if you remember, they were the night game. So Green Bay played Pittsburgh in the late afternoon slot. And when Pittsburgh sealed that win, I believe it was at Lambeau, you could hear the cheers coming from inside the Bears locker room
because we were downstairs we were having a meeting with Phil Emery that night.
Yes, and you could hear, as that game ended, you could hear the team they knew the stakes. They had followed that game. They come out on the field, they go 3 and out. Eagles go down and score. Kickoff. Devin Hester fumbles the return. Eagles recover, score again. Bears go 3 and out. Eagles score again. It's 21-0, and your offense has run 6 plays.
Yeah.
And it carried, the hangover carried over. And obviously the Bears went the wrong way at a fork in the road in their history there without a division title for.
Yeah. And the next week they played Green Bay for the division title. And we know how that ended, and we're not going to revisit that this week.
No, but that was another one of those quick and heavy pendulum swings because they had been hot. They had Josh McCown and he was quarterbacking the offense well. And it went the other way against a good Eagles team that was coached by Chip Kelly at the time.
Yeah, how about that? 2017, we go back there. Mitch Trubisky is the new quarterback for the Bears. John Fox is in his final days as the Bears head coach in that period. For those watching on YouTube, there was a wonderful photo taken in the Lincoln Financial Field parking lot as we got out of our Uber
There it
and headed to the
is.
stadium. It's you taking a picture of me pointing at a dead rat before we walked in for that football game. There it is for those of our audience watching on YouTube.
If that doesn't sum up the Bears' experiences at Lincoln Financial Field over the past decade, I don't know what does.
They lose 31-3 that day. It was ugly. 2 years later, they go back there, and this is one that sticks out to me, and this is one of the ones that I reflected on the most, because you get caught in these senses of places sometimes. And I'm coming out of the elevators in the press box at Lincoln Financial Field last week, and I'm thinking, oh man, this is in 2019. Rich and I had to wait out here to connect with current then general manager Ryan Pace, because we had to alert him that we were in the closing stages of writing this big story, which was really kind of the signature piece that you and I worked on together during our time of the beat, about how the Bears blew the 2017 draft decision to take Mitch Trubisky over Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. And you remember the anxiety of that, of just having to tell Ryan, like, look, like, I just want to give you a heads up. We've got a lot of stuff. We want to get your feedback on this stuff. It's like a moment as a reporter where you're like, man, like, this was not the story we hoped we were telling in the Bears 100th season, a year that started with a pep rally in Rosemont with Super Bowl hopes, with everything going on. And then there we are in early November telling the GM we're about to chronicle the decision to draft the quarterback that failed. And oh, by the way, everyone has a sense that this season has fallen away. And they lost that day, 22-14, dropped to 3-5. That was their fourth consecutive loss. I believe they had 9 net yards in the first half of that football game. And you're like, man, like, if there was a life comes at you fast moment, that was it right there, of going from July to November and being like, this was not how anybody planned this.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not really a coincidence that the Bears have struggled, particularly in that stadium. And the Eagles have been good for the entire 2000s. I mean, you're going back to Donovan McNabb being there. They've got good quarterbacks. They've had good coaches. And so you establish that dominance and turn a place into a difficult place to play. And man, that is stark, the contrast there that they would come away. I mean, I was thinking about, speaking of that season and this whole honeymoon concept was, if you think about the Matt Nagy honeymoon ending, it was that Green Bay game on
the
open the season.
The opener.
So it's the opener. It's the Bears 100. It's the NFL kickoff. You and I walking around Millennium Park and the museum campus that afternoon. Beautiful day on the lakefront, and just so much enthusiasm about the Bears season. They come out and put up 3 points, and it was that feeling that I described leaving Notre Dame Stadium. Just the air let out of the balloon. And it was the reality. And in that instance that you're talking about in 2019, it just extended. They never got out of it.
That was a Thursday night curtain lifter for the entire season. And I remember vividly, I always tell people the Bears were down 10-3 with possession to go have an opportunity late in the game to tie the football game. And not a single person inside Soldier Field thought they were going to do it, right? Like, it was just one of those moments. It's like they have a chance to, but it's not happening. And it didn't. And they lost, and the whole season went sideways. And it's one of those things where you contrast that to this past Friday, and you see the juice and the belief and the confidence and the justifiable reasons that this team feels good about where it's headed. And it's really market. I was going to save this for later in the program, but I'll bring it up now because I do remember this vividly as well. And it relates to kind of the charisma that Ben Johnson has that mirrors some of the juice that Matt Nagy had in year one. And I think if you put Matt on truth serum, he might admit to you that maybe his confidence got a little bit too big, after that first season. You win Coach of the Year. You go to the NFL honors ceremony. You accept the Coach of the Year honors from Barry Sanders and Joe Namath. Like, you feel pretty good about yourself, right? You're in Chicago. Everyone loves you. And then I remember being at that Bears 100 celebration in Rosemont, and they had that opening night ceremony. And at one point, Matt took the mic, and you remember this. I can tell by the way you're smiling right now. Yeah. Matt spiked the mic with one of his trademark boom calls, and you kind of looked at me and just did your, all right, and like, just kind of to the standpoint of something that Ben Johnson said out loud this week, you haven't achieved anything yet. And so it's like that reminder of, like, don't spike the football prematurely. Understand how treacherous this mountain climb is, how steep this climb always is. Even when you're having success, you got to understand that you're one wind gust away from the next rock slide taking you back to the base of the mountain. And like, I think that will be a challenge for Ben in the months to come, as he gets sort of celebrated in town as this hero that arrived and awakened the sleeping giant that he identified here. But you do, like, you go through different phases as a head coach and as a leader. And when you become the face, it's intoxicating. intoxicating. And so I think that there might be a little bit of a cautionary tale in that for Ben. And I think he's wired the right way to avoid that, but it is notable, right?
Well, yeah. And that turns our attention to a bit more focus on why the team is winning. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And I think you look back in that 2018 scenario, the team was so successful in mostly because of its defense. And here you had this super intriguing pairing between coach and, highly drafted quarterback. And yet that was not the driving force of the Bears' success. Okay. So let's bring that lens forward here. And some of the things Ben Johnson said this week about, winning in spite of the passing game. Now, there's two ways to look at this, of course. One is that they're winning in spite of the passing game. And once Ben coaches up Caleb and elevates that passing game, boy, can you imagine the heights this team will get to? On the other side of that is, okay, if Ben can't elevate the passing game, are they really going to lap the NFL in turnover margin the rest of the way? You know what I mean? So it becomes a shifted focus to this idea of where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses, what are the parts that are driving that? And I think there are some similarities with that 2018 scenario that would give anyone pause right now, but also understanding that Ben Johnson's not Matt Nagy. Caleb Williams is not Mitch Trubisky. Yeah. And let's continue to see where this goes. We can continue to talk about the strengths and weaknesses, but what a supporting cast offensively. And even though the passing numbers are what they are, the run production is excellent.
It's next level. It's honestly next level. And they're the number one rushing team in the NFL by choice, right? Like it is a choice to be that. And they've committed to it. They've stayed committed to it. They started by building an offensive line. They've unlocked this thing at levels I never thought would be possible in year one. I told people coming into the year, Ben Johnson had produced a 1,000-yard rusher in each of his 3 seasons calling plays in Detroit. And it was a different guy every year. They went from Jamal Williams to David Montgomery to Jahmyr Gibbs. Now you're looking at DeAndre Swift. And if Kyle Monangai stays hot, they could have 2, and you could be looking that through a different lens. Since we're on the topic of the quarterback, let's hear a little bit here from Ben Johnson. I want to have this discussion with you, and then we'll take it in a different direction. But here's what Ben did say on Monday first about the inaccuracy that Caleb Williams has had.
It's an area that we are certainly talking about. There's no question. I will say in regards to Friday that was one of the more challenging games in terms of the wind. And so I called a outbreaker to DJ early in that game, and DJ ran a phenomenal route. And yet when the ball's in the air that long, that wind was taking care of it. And you could see it with the place kickers as well. It did a number on Philly's kicker where, the wind was a major factor. And so after that throw, I was a little bit concerned, particularly going that direction of putting the ball in the air for too long for a guy like Caleb, who's got a super strong arm too. So I would say that plays a part, but there's a number of them that we've been talking about where we got to fundamentally be correct. The primary receiver, when he's open, we want to make sure we hit him. And then all of our pass catchers, we just harped on it today. We need to be more disciplined in our route detail. It's not where it needs to be. Our depth's not proper all the time. Our steps isn't. And so everybody's got a role to play to get this pass game cleaned up. It's not where it needs to be. We're winning in spite of our passing game, not because of it. And none of us are pleased with that right now.
So, Rich, there's a layered answer there, and it's essentially summarized in the head coach telling you the precision of the passing game isn't there yet. It's a collective effort. And yet what most people clung to was that very last sentiment. We're winning in spite of our passing game, not because of it, and we're not thrilled with that. And so that created a little bit of a tension and noise, if you want to call it that, in the early parts of the week. And then on Tuesday, Ben circled back with a little bit of a clarification and wanted to play that also.
What did you appreciate? I know the passing game isn't where you want it to be right now, but how do you feel like Caleb is just progressing with the way he's handling or managing the offense?
Yeah, I think when I made that comment yesterday, it's easily to construe it as I'm not happy with the quarterback. That's not the case whatsoever. He continues to get better each and every week, and I couldn't be more pleased with how he played last week. And I know what the stats say. throw those out the window. He's doing a really good job managing the ball game, and that's step number one for the quarterback. And so he's going to continue to get better. He's doing the process is really good right now with how he approaches the week. The way he's taking the coaching, the way he's applying the coaching, I'm very pleased with that. And I think we're going to continue to see him ascend, whether the stats tell the story or not.
So put your reporter's hat back on, sit in the seat that I sit in every day, and you tell me how you would process those two pieces of information and interpret them.
Yeah, I think there are two components to Caleb's performance overall that you have to factor into those comments, filter through those comments. Number one is his decision making, and then number two are his physical mechanics throwing the ball. Ben there said, I'm paraphrasing it, but you just heard it. When the primary receiver is open, you got to hit him. Okay. That's decision making. That's seeing the field. That's when number one is open. Can you get him the ball? Okay. So decision making, that to me is where you see so many quarterbacks fall short. Can they see the field? No. Can they process the defense? No. The quickness of decision making. Then you have this issue of mechanics. So the instance where that Ben's describing there, where I think it was DJ Moore said, where Caleb throws the ball, it's the right decision, but the wind is playing, wreaking havoc on the ball. Okay. Maybe his fundamentals, his mechanics were fine on that play, but you've seen throughout the season instances where Caleb's throwing mechanics aren't sharp on situations that maybe it's an unforced error. I think we saw this on Monday night, like Peyton Manning mentioning it, and other instances where you have really established quarterback minds or quarterback perspectives calling out Caleb's mechanics. So what needs to be fixed to elevate his play? Both. What can be fixed? That's a great question. And so you defer to Ben there on process, that he likes the way Caleb Williams is going about his weeks and his work. Okay. The results of that are going to play out on the field. But for me, it's what can he correct? And I look at it, two stats that really jump out to me. When you look at, like, this is a bottom 10 passing attack in the NFL. They are 7th, however, in sacks per pass attempt. Mm-hmm. So top 10 there. And they're only fifth best interception rate. So for whatever is breaking down with either Caleb's decision-making or his mechanics, he's staying away from negative plays.
Yep.
He's not getting sacked. He's not turning the ball over. And when your defense is taking the ball away like they are, and when you're running the ball the way they are, that's a winning formula.
So here's where I would high five Ben and say, totally agree. It's the concept of a quarterback does need to understand how to manage a football game. And that happens within each game plan. You have an understanding of what defense you're going against and what you're actually trying to accomplish. It happens within the flow of the game, where we're adjusting what we need out of this drive based on the game flow and where we're at. Caleb has been doing a really good job of that. He's obviously shown in the late stages of games he can go win them. You give him credit for all those things. But when Ben says throw the numbers out the window, I push back a little bit, because you were the one that told us in training camp that a 70% completion percentage was a target for you. It is what you wanted to accomplish. And then, oh, by the way, I'll pull up the stats. And Caleb Williams, among qualifying quarterback leaders in the NFL right now, ranks 27th out of 27th in completion percentage, 58.1. He's behind Trevor Lawrence, Cam Ward, and Michael Penix. Those are the three guys immediately above him on that list. And so, no, I can't throw that out entirely. You told us you wanted him to complete 70% of his passes. He's below 60. He was below 50 in Philadelphia, albeit with bad conditions. And so we know where the bar's at for the quarterback. And Ben's been entirely honest and candid with his assessment of Caleb all season. It's just going to be interesting to see where this goes down the stretch of a season as the competition gets stiff, as the stakes grow, and can Caleb, as I've said a couple times, can he become the engine for this thing rather than just a passenger for the joyride? It leads me into our next little question here, and this is one that Take the North co-founder David Haugh presented to me on Wednesday morning during my appearance on The Score. I told him you were going to be on Take the North. He was as excited as anyone in this audience to hear from you today. And so he asked me this, and I'll ask it to you. The Bears came into 2025 with their top priority on the board being to unlock Caleb Williams, to develop him and unlock his potential within the season. Well, now they're 9-3. They're the 1 seed in the NFC, and they've got an opportunity to go chase the biggest of dreams right now, be with the success they've had. How do they manage this now where you're still trying to bring along a young quarterback, but you now have to shift the priority level to where that's not number 1, 1A, 1B, 1C, 2, 3. Now it's let's go win this damn football game, and we'll figure out how to bring the quarterback along with that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fascinating part of Ben Johnson's role as the play caller and offensive brain behind this operation is, can he win games and put Caleb in positions to succeed? So the question for Ben is, what might he have to change? Now, he would never say he's changing his game plan or he's, slimming down the playbook to, something that's a little bit more limited than what he would otherwise do to attack a defense here. He's going to try to attack the Packers and the 49ers and the Browns and the Lions. Like, he's going to attack them the way he wants. He's going to try to get the most out of what Caleb is capable of within those concepts. That's his job. But man, that's a tough one. I mean, you got to really crawl inside his head and understand, what is Ben thinking about Caleb's shortcomings at this point? Surely that he sees concepts that Caleb's not mastering. What if he really likes that concept against the Packers and to make sure it's right? These things are going to play out over the next 5 weeks. It makes it fascinating, really, to see how he balances this. But, to your point about the engine here, this is the same conversation we had in 2018 about the quarterback, needing to be the engine. Now, again, they're different players and different coaches. And so you don't want to constrain the current narrative in that way. But Matt Nagy he could not figure this out. And so everyone listening to this podcast has context for the challenge that you described here for Ben. How do you balance these concepts and put Caleb in position to be successful? Like Ben's saying there, maybe I shouldn't call that, that throw to the far boundary in a windy condition, something like that. Like, okay, yeah, that's good self-reflection. That's good self-evaluation. And he's got to go through it too. But boy, that's why you make the money. That's why you're in that chair, is to figure out this balance.
I vividly remember sitting upstairs from where I am right now here at Haugh, and it's 10 days after the double doink loss, and Matt Nagy telling us that Mitch has got to become a master at understanding coverages, right? It was very specific, direct, and calculated for him to say that out loud in the year-end press conference, and then to offer up a play from that year's, I think it was Commanders game, maybe it was Redskins, I don't remember when they changed, but it was like, here, I'm going to give you an example of a situation where we've got to be better, and we weren't. And so I like that'll come in time. Ben is really good right now, and I wrote about it for The Athletic this week, this ability to keep a team locked in on today. And so like there's big picture issues that they'll get to down the road, but they understand that the preparation on Thursday for Green Bay is, how do we attack them on third down offensively and defensively? How do I get every single player in this building understanding the work that needs to be done today so that when the third down comes up at 5:00 on Friday or on Sunday, we can get this thing pointed in the right direction. You mentioned this is going to play out. It's going to play out on a pretty big stage. They have two huge games against the Packers, both in front of national audience. They play the 49ers on a Sunday night in week 17. Their finale is against the Lions. We'll see where that lands in the time slot based on what's at stake. And so there's no hiding, right? Like this is going to be out there for the whole world to react to and judge for themselves as we get down the stretch of the season. But it brings us to kind of our last topic here. And it's, reflecting on the one and done Bears of 2018 and other teams that have shown us this. What is sustainable and what within this season right now is real that you can carry forward to make a run? You or I don't think have ever covered, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I know I have never covered a team that has gone to the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. It's always been a one-off, the 2012 Vikings, the 2018 Bears, the 2020 Bears, now probably the 2025 Bears.
Have you covered a playoff win?
Never covered a playoff win
Neither
either.
did I didn't cover one in 11 seasons.
So think about that. That's crazy. It reminds you of how difficult this is just to have success, and then to sustain it is a whole different challenge. When you think about the sustainability factor, look, like you've got background with the Washington football team, Commanders, Redskins, whatever you want to call them over time. They're the they're the poster child of 2025 for a life comes at you fast, right? Like they were on top of the world 12 months ago. They were in the NFC Championship game 11 months ago. And now here they are sort of stumbling and scrapping and just trying to keep their head above water. And so, I'll just open-end it for you on the sustainability question.
Yeah, I mean, I think when the quarterback can be that eraser for your team, then it solves so many other problems, and that's a key to sustainability. And I think everyone would agree, Ben Johnson first and foremost, that they don't have that yet.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said for the realism in that perspective. Like, don't kid yourself and don't try to sell something that everybody can see through. Just go to work. And I think, as Ben goes through these last stretch of games here, and you were talking about winning and unlocking the quarterback, like if they're in situations that are favorable to game script and they're in winning scenarios, that's only going to help them unlock the quarterback. If they're playing with the lead, you can unlock the quarterback. You can do things in the passing game that are going to beget success and build confidence and positive reinforcement and all that. So just continuing to win. Yes. Okay. Try to develop that expectation and sustainability. You think about the run game. I mean, if you can run the ball, it's what the expression is the run game travels.
Yeah.
Yes. In cold weather, they're going to play a couple cold weather games here. You got to feel confident about their ability to run the ball. That part can be sustainable. Let's take injuries out of it because injuries are unpredictable. The interesting question about when it comes to sustainability for me are the takeaways, because I believe the Bears, their turnover margin is plus 17. The next best in the league is 9. Like they've basically lapped the league in turnover margin. And you say to yourself, like the common line of thinking would be, you can't count on turnovers. Turnovers are a bit erratic, but Bears fans know this as well as anyone that it's a way of life. I mean, it's a culture. It's a way of life. And that's not necessarily to say that, some of these new acquisitions in the Bears secondary are going to pick off 8 passes a season for the next, 5 or 6 years or whatever. But you could say going into any game, trying to handicap any game, well, you can't count on the Bears to strip a tush push or force an interception until they do,
all the time, right?
Until they do. And so I think it's going to give doubters, skeptics, odds makers reason to doubt the Bears' ability to win these games. Like the number for Sunday against the Packers is 7.
Is it? I haven't seen it yet.
7. It's that's crazy to me. Like this is as I was texting you before the Eagles game when the number was 7. It's like this is a game that the Bears will think they can win.
Oh, for sure.
I think there's every reason to think that. Now, could they lose by 10? Yeah, sure. But I'm going to take the Bears on that number. I feel the same way about the number this week. Like the Bears are going to take the field to win this game. And could they lose by 10? Yeah, sure. But you've got a running game and you've got a defense that takes the ball away. That turnover faucet, as you like to call it, the faucet might get turned off at times. And that's a bit precarious. That's game by game, but the Bears have shown consistently that they can do it. And so in the meantime, you keep building the quarterback up and relying on the run game.
I don't have the number in front of me. I think that there is an element of truth to the idea that, the takeaways are hard to sustain and that is really difficult to say, we can rely on that. But in 9 years under Lovie Smith, I think the Bears averaged 32 a year, and so it was like, no, they sustained it. They did it year after year after year. They just kept getting them. And it's because it was who they were. It was their identity, is what they emphasized and what they were able to do with their playmakers, put in advantageous positions to make the plays that were there. So that's an interesting part of this.
But the fact that the yardage averages defensively are so
they're off. They're off.
That is a big cause for concern. Like it's not like this 2018 defense that'll beat you 10 ways and they're just a stone wall. Like this defense gives up yards, they just take the ball away. And so you've got to be able to limit just some of the gains and continue to try to take the ball away.
We made a couple obvious Matt Nagy, Ben Johnson comps earlier in the pod. Here's where I'd say a notable contrast is Ben has done the play calling thing at the highest level possible in this league. Matt was still trying to figure it out. His goal was to unlock the offense, get a quarterback developed, and he failed to do so. Ben came in here with a proven resume that looked like I know how to play high level offense in this league, and I do it starting first with the running game. And so, like, to your point, that not only travels throughout a season, it travels from season to season when you have a commitment and a vision to doing it the way you want to, and the ability to execute it with your players. That's a huge deal. It's a huge advantage. I think that there's a huge advantage to having Ben Johnson as the head coach. I would say, and you know this man better than I do, that Ben is probably closer for me to Sean McVay than he is to Matt Nagy, because I think he's got this combination of offensive brilliance and these leadership chops that just the connection skill to resonate with every damn guy in the locker room. It's really been impressive to me to see him connect on that level, particularly with defensive guys that talk so highly about him, because that's usually their own little silo. And so, like, that's it, it's really, you're really guarded about getting over your skis, but I think the Bears are in really good hands at the head coaching position and will be through the end of the decade. That's a crazy thing for me to say. I just said it.
What do you see are the weaknesses? This is a question both for a short-term horizon and a long-term horizon, but weaknesses that I don't say need to be addressed, but like that could be their undoing.
Well, look, I mean, I think that, like, the quarterback is a situation, right? Like,
if that's the answer, that's a huge issue.
I mean, it is, right. I mean, you can win 9 out of 10 and gloss over a lot of errors, right? And a lot of things that make people uncomfortable. But when you lose 3 or 4, that makes everyone really, really uncomfortable really fast. We've talked about Mitch Trubisky. Mitch struggled with struggling. I think Caleb's mentally tougher than Mitch was, but there is an element to, like, when it's not going well, what does this look like? You know, and so the Bears haven't really been, they started this season 0-2. That was significant adversity, but it hasn't been a month where it's like, oh, this thing is a little sideways here, and how are we going to deal with that?
I would also say that you got to like Caleb's supporting cast 1,000 times more.
Oh yeah,
what Mitch was working with in his.
There's no question. The other thing I would say is as a head coach, you've got to go through phases with a football team, and when you have success, you have to coach through success. And I think that the coaches that have won at the highest level will tell you how complicated it gets when guys in your locker room start feeling themselves and start, letting ego come into play. And it's a totally different process of managing that than it is creating the initial buy-in and the swell of belief that carries you to where you are now, 9-3 in year one. The challenges get different. And so you've got to constantly evolve and adapt with what the challenges for that football team are. So that, I mean, I think Ben's up to that challenge. I just don't know. I don't think there's anything in his background that tells you he's ever had to deal with any of that. And so that'll be interesting for me to see. And, ultimately he's the play caller, right? So he's not leaving. Dennis Allen's not getting a new head coaching job anytime soon. So he's not leaving. You're going to have some turnover within your assistant ranks, but you should be able to have the core of your offensive and defensive schemes together for a while. Huge advantage also.
Correct me if I'm wrong on the timing of this. DeAndre Swift was with Detroit when Ben Johnson was there, and they traded him away.
Correct. And this is probably a topic here for an episode, because I've got some more insight on this than I had previously. And it's interesting because tell me why you asked that question.
Here's where I'm going with it is, this is just speaking to Ben Johnson's credentials here, is that even a running back that he maybe wasn't enamored with. And so correct me if your reporting leads you to a different conclusion, but my thought was, even if with a running back, he may not have been his first choice, he is doing a great job getting high level production out of him. And it just should give Bears fans confidence that as the roster evolves, Ben is going to find a way to make it work with his guys.
I think there was a sentiment that circulated that like Ben wasn't sold on DeAndre Swift, as told by DeAndre Swift's exit from Detroit. The context of that, though, is worth remembering. DeAndre Swift was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles on draft weekend in 2023 because the Lions saw Jahmyr Gibbs as a potential offensive player of the year type guy that they had to have. And so they drafted him in round 1. They shook up the entire draft board, and everyone said, what are they doing taking a running back? Traded DeAndre Swift that weekend because they didn't need that anymore. And Jahmyr Gibbs has gone on to show that he was an upgrade. Like, there's no question about that. DeAndre Swift, and some of the small conversations I've had with him, I think it still wounds him that he left Detroit in that fashion. I bet it does. But at the same time, he's a guy that I think is such a true pro, that he's bought into everything they're selling. Guys like that, given the circumstances of this year, are key cogs in the machine of being very selfless, understanding the vision, coming to work every day, being reliable through injury, getting your ass on the football field every chance you have, and then making big plays in big moments. And so, like, he's one of these, you could make a list of 8 guys on this team right now that are sort of unsung heroes of why they are 9-3. DeAndre Swift's on that list for me, and he's there in bold letters because of the way he approaches his daily business. And like, I just sat down in this room I'm sitting in right now with Kevin Byard, another guy, like, just, leading the league in interceptions right now. Very, very confident in year 10 in his career, has never missed a football game in his career. And he's just one of these guys that, like, you show up and you're like, oh yeah, Kevin's playing today. Joe Tooney has missed 4 regular season games in his career, maybe 2 regular season and 2 playoff, I think it is. He's got as many Super Bowl rings as missed games in his career. And so, like, when you can turn around and be like, oh yeah, Joe's starting Sunday, like, the dependability factor for winning, I think is so unheralded. And that's kind of a footnote on the topic you just brought up.
Well, so let's think just a little bit more about the roster in terms of the sustainability. I just really like the Bears' skill position players offensively. And this is not a prolific offense. I mean, they have a really good running game, and I think they've tapped into something clearly with Swift and Monangai, but the receivers are good. They've got some versatility at tight end. Their offensive line is better. Like, that is something you can continue to build on. There's every reason to think that, like, let's say when they go play the Packers, whose cast of skill position players offensively would you rather have if you're just like an anonymous NFL?
Yeah, I mean, man, I'd take the Bears for sure.
That's what I mean. So if you think about them and the confidence they should have in the players they're lining up offensively, and they can devote resources to the defensive side of the ball, keep that stability at head coach, and they've got all the vibes and the leadership, those boxes checked in the right way, and we'll see. You have to like their future.
All right, as we head for the exit here, I got one more comp for you, and I put it in an email to you and Studs when the day started. This is a Chicago comp here because we talked to Matt Nagy. I'm going to bring up the Joe Madden comp because this is another guy who arrived in town with a lot of charisma, very different energy than Ben has, but it was notable energy. Got an initial wave of buy-in from the 2015 Cubs, and the 2015 Cubs were ahead of schedule. They went and played in the National League Championship Series that first season under Joe Madden. Got swept by the Mets, of course, but got there in a way where you played meaningful baseball in the 1-game playoff in Pittsburgh, in the series against the Cardinals, losing to the Mets. You gain this experience, and then 2016 they arrived at the starting gate like, let's go, let's freaking win this whole thing. And they were the best team in baseball from the day the season started until the extra innings of Game 7 of the World Series. And so, like, this is, there's a parallel here for a team that's ahead of schedule, in part because the leadership came in and so quickly changed the culture and was able to get immediate results. And now it's getting that momentum to swell you as far as it can go in this season and then into 2026. It's going to be fascinating to see where they take this.
That's a great comp. I love that one. You mentioned the Commanders a few times, and they experienced this last year. Dan Quinn in their first season with that team and a rookie quarterback and all the success they had. I mean, if this Bears season ended up at the NFC Championship game, just a plus success. And then you see where the next year takes you. The experiences all help. The winning situations breed more of that. Injuries, yeah, they're an uncertain sort of guillotine that's hanging over every NFL team all the time. That's just life in the league, and Washington's dealt with that this year. And so they played without the quarterback. But yeah, man, like this type of wheel spin, to get the coach right. That's why you restart it, because something like this is possible. And so we'll see where it takes them. I think, what are we going to look back like on after that final game against Detroit? What are we going to look back on this Black Friday and say? Is it going to say, like, are we going to go, you know what? Like,
it was a tease.
It was a tease because, you know what? The Eagles really were starting to fall apart, and that win wasn't as good as it looked at the time. And look, the Bears were, in trouble late in that game. And it turns out, that was a bit of fool's gold.
Or is it an arrival?
Or it's an arrival. That's what the fun is of these last stretches. We're going to find out. and every fan out there should soak it in. I know I'll be, carving out time. This is appointment viewing Bears Packers to see this storyline continue to unfold.
We'll jump in the carpool with Kevin Fishbane and I this weekend.
See,
you can drive up to Sheboygan with us.
I was going to say, that's what I really miss, is making the Casey and JoJo mix CD and just turning it up all the way. What is it? Deer. What's the
Brown Deer? But we're in Sheboygan now. We've got new lodging. It's in Sheboygan.
Yeah, the Athletic kind of. Yeah, okay, I got it.
No, we did that in the latter stages of the Tribune years, and Kevin has never been on a Green Bay car trip with me. I was trying to prep him for how stupid I am on those drives, and so he's got to be ready for that. Rich, you've got permission now to jump out of the cold tub time machine. This was as good of a visit as I was anticipating it to be. As good as it was to see you, even better to see me with that dead rat in Philly, for those who got to see the image here on the podcast. So as always, brother, thanks for jumping on.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me, and I'll be reading.
That's Rich Campbell, everybody. We've got our Take the North Bears Packers preview episode coming up very soon. Stay tuned for that with me and Mark Grote coming up soon. It's going to be a fantastic week, a highly energized weekend up at Lambeau Field. That's Rich Campbell from The Athletic. I'm Dan Wiederer. Thank you for listening to Take the North. Thank you for viewing. Great talk. See you out there.